Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. It's really great to have you here. I'm Helena Eribene, and I am a member of Earthzone Productions. And Earthzone Productions are about to embark on an odyssey and a voyage into the past, the present, and the future. We have built a time machine, and with that time machine, we are going to go back to the past, to the pre-colonial Africa. And there we're going to look at what was going on culturally in West Africa before the colonialists arrived. So I'm going to find out a little bit more about what's happened in Igbo land. And that's part of what we now call Nigeria. And to help me, we have a special guest. We've got Somto Ejefobiri, who is a student of Igbo Cosmology. Welcome, Somto Ejefobiri.
Thank you very much, Helena. I'm really glad and honored to be here with you. And I hope we have a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, me too, me too. So Somto is a student of Igbo Cosmology, and she's been studying it for 3 years, which is quite a short time considering how old the cosmology is. So she has a BA in sociology and anthropology, and she's based in Lagos. So that's just a bit of an introduction. My first question is, how did you come across Igbo cosmology? What piqued your interest?
Right from when I was still a child, I've always had a deep interest with masquerades, with culture. I had this uncle that was a dibia, and I enjoyed going to his groove and sitting down around and just looking around. And the whole thing,
Sorry, just to interrupt you. What is a dibia?
he was a herbalist, or if you want to say what's the definition of a dibia, we could say somebody who is an expert in esoteric knowledge, somebody who is blessed with what my ancestors referred to as awu, and they were able to connect and communicate with cosmic and universal forces. So through their help, they're able to get some spiritual discernment that they would use to help people that come to them for, seeking solution for a particular problem. So my uncle specialized in herbs, in dealing with herbs. So he
Okay.
gets people coming to him and he takes care of them for a certain period. And at the end of the day, like those ones that I've actually witnessed, and after the whole treatment, somebody with a swollen leg, somehow
Yes.
that stuff gets healed or gets cured. What they now recently classify as bone or leg cancer. So, when we talk about modern medicine, but my uncle was able to
Right.
treat these kind of things using some certain herbs. So as a child, I really enjoyed watching masquerades, participating in traditional activities. Now, at a certain point, um, some of my cousins were trying to be against what he's doing because in this our region we have a lot of indoctrinated Christians. So once they see you participating or doing traditional things, to them you're interacting with the devil, so it is demonic. So there is this shame that is attached to culture or spirituality. There is this shame, there is this need to disassociate from people that interact with it. To a certain level, I grew up with, with the fear that this spirituality, it is not from God or it is demonic, or, the usual thing that we grew up with. Then, as an adult, I had to kind of muster the courage to try my own independent knowledge that is different from what other people have told me, what I've learned in the church, or the gossips around. So it's kind of inspired me to meet up these people, practitioners, actual practitioners, and ask them questions like, what are you people doing? Why is this thing being classified as something demonic, as something that is ungodly, unworthy, and all those things. I had to, it piqued my interest, and I had to pursue the truth. And I was aware that I cannot find the truth by listening to religious folks. If I want to get the truth about what the system works, I have to be participating and observing how this system functions and how it works. And it's worked out for me because when I went and started interacting with them, I found out that what we were taught as children, it is not the reality. It is far from reality, from what these people are actually practicing. So, my interest in it, studying, researching, and observing helped me to understand that, I have to disregard every single thing that I've learned about this institution from the church. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, so your uncle, you said he is or he was a dibia,
Yeah,
and
he was.
it's like a system of healing, cosmic healing, esoteric knowledge. Does this whole cosmology, so to speak, have a name? Is it part of, we know it's part of the Igbo land tradition that has been frowned upon, but does it have a particular name? I mean, I suppose if you go to the church, they'll call it witchcraft, but does this actual, let's call it witchcraft, have a name?
No,
Does it have
no,
a
it's not.
title?
It's not witchcraft. It is not witch. Okay, witchcraft from it means different things. Like when you say somebody is a wizard in this career or in this aspect. You could be saying that this person is an expert. This person is good at what he's doing. Now, when you now try to give it another meaning from another context, because what we call witches, the ones that you say they fly at night, we call them amosu in my local dialect. Now, it is not what my uncle was practicing. The amosu part of it is even something that is being frowned upon. Now, what my uncle practiced was natural because the only thing he needed to do was to go inside the bushes and fetch herbs. He was able to know the right herbs to
Right,
use, the right herbal concoction to bring in, the right roots, and within certain condition, and give it to somebody to help heal that person. So this is what he was doing. But unfortunately,
right,
religion was
yes,
able to twist this practice to be something demonic, something witchcraft, and something unholy.
right,
But in reality, that's not what my uncle was practicing. He's something like natural magic. He was communicating with natural forces. They were fundamental
right,
to our foundation as people, as ancestors, as descendants of my lineage. So there was nothing
right.
demonic or witchy in that sense. It is just a religious misinterpretation of what my people were practicing.
So who are your people and what region is
I'm from an Igbo. I'm an Igbo woman. I'm from Anambra State in the Navy. So we are from the southeastern part of Nigeria. That's where
right?
we
And
we
so your uncle was a herbalist, basically. He was a naturopath. He used natural medicine, herbal medicine. He was a
yes,
herbalist.
yes.
So, what on earth has that got to do with something demonic? If he was healing people, was it seen as magic? I mean, if this was something that was practiced for thousands and let's say even millions of years, as long as Igbos have been
Mm-hmm,
around,
mm-hmm.
why was it suddenly, or why did people turn away from it?
But I think the first reason why people turn away from it is because of wrong Christian indoctrination. They came and gave it a bad name, or should I say a bad rep, that basically made people to detach themselves from it and they fear the indigenous spiritual system. Now, when these people came, they saw a thriving society using based on what can be found within our environment. We never really had a need for the kind of civilization that the white man was trying to bring for us. We were growing on our own pace. We already had our indigenous technologies that we were already operating with. So, with or
Right.
without the Europeans coming to our shores, we would have also evolved just like every single society. We would have evolved, and we evolved along with our spirituality. So, what they did is to pick up or pick out some cultural practices that they deem unfit in their the new world that they were presenting to our people, and it led to our ancestors detaching themselves from our indigenous system. Now, with time, they became popular, they became new, and people were trooping into Christianity. And the more people went into Christianity, those people were now taught that those people that have refused to destroy their shrines and their artifacts are the reasons why their environment, their communities, their villages is still underdeveloped. So what happens here is
Right.
that those people that that refuse to convert were now being persecuted, not just by the religious missionaries, but by their own kinsmen. So their own kinsmen began to persecute them. Now, in order to avoid
Right.
persecution, those ones that have refused to give up their shrine had to switch over to Christianity in order to be included in community affairs. So you see what is happening now. Now then the fear. Now religion
Yes. Yes.
brought upon fear. It made people to fear this system. Now, already our traditional system is filled with mysticisms. We have things that are really, really covert. There are some information that we don't really put out there for everybody to see. So it is limited to some certain group of people. So because this information is not public knowledge, what happens here is that they were able to convince people that, oh, look at this institution, look at this people. Do you know what they are doing? They don't want you to be part of them because they know that what they are doing is not right. So people began to fear these traditional institutions, and all those things are what led our ancestors and a lot of us to, you know, remove
Yes.
ourselves from our traditional system.
What does it consist of then, the whole cosmology? So there is the herbalism, there's the healing practice.
Yeah, there is a lot. When we talk about the cosmology of the Igbo people, we're talking about the spirituality of the Igbo people, how they understand universal and cosmic forces, how they understand the interactions that exist between the physical and the spiritual. So this is where we now have the aspect of deities that we refer to as alose. We now have ancestors and Ndiche. We now have energies like Awo, water spirits, negative energies that we try to rebuke. So there is a whole lot of them that are all embedded into our cosmology as the Igbo people. And herbalism is an aspect of the Dibia. Now,
Is one of the aspects.
within the Dibia structure, we have different aspects, and each Dibia has their own specialization. For instance, divination, a diviner is also a Dibia, but the individual specialization is just to divine, able to
Right.
tap into the Akasha record and able to like draw out informations and divulge the informations, get information from the spirits and all those things.
There's quite a few terms that you're using. So I know that I want to ask you about masquerades because that was the first thing that you were drawn to, and that's somehow taboo, which makes me think of African carvings as well that I know that were demonized.
Hmm.
Now you're talking about diviners and did you say Ashaka records?
Yeah, like where the diviner gets his or her informations from. Let's say
Okay,
record of
and what
time.
is what is that? What is an Ashaka record?
Yes.
How does that work?
Okay, so when you meet a diviner, they first of all they hand you what we call ofafa, a staff of authority that is dedicated for divination.
Do you just go and see a diviner? Is it on a special occasion or is it like if you have a,
Special occasions, yes. If you have a certain problem.
Right.
You're trying to make a decision about something. So whatever the situation
Right.
is, you could just decide to, I want to get this information. I want to know about, so and so. I want to know
Right. Okay.
if my life, or if I'm going to be successful, or whatever, whatever. And you will now decide to go to the
Okay.
DBA.
And who do they tap into? Who do they talk to? Do they talk to your ancestors? Do they talk to dead spirits? Are they looking into the future? How does this work?
Okay, so the DBA, when you're going to the DBA for divination, the DBA already has what we refer to as ezumezu. Now, ezumezu is a collective or the totality of an individual's spiritual guide or spiritual foundation. So the DBA on its own operates with the essence, the energy of this whole ezumezu. Now, when you meet the Dibia is communicating with his own foundational spirit and your own foundational spirit. So the question goes both ways.
Okay.
Now, what happens here is that each questions that are being asked would be answered by the essence or the spirit or the energy it refers to. It could be the question of chi, a person's driving energy. Now, what happens here is that the person's chi begins to speak through the dibia. Now, the dibia uses some certain tools for divination. As the Libya is casting those tools, which he uses those tools as something he uses to focus, for focusing of his energy. Now, as he's casting those tools, he's getting the informations he needs from those spirits. Now, if some of the information that I'm asking of is from the person's lineage, and then it is normal that the person's ancestors are the person that are going to be divulging the information. Now, if it is from a deity from the person's maternal or paternal home, then the deity would now come in and present and start answering the set questions. So it goes both ways.
Okay, so that really packs a lot of information there. So you've got the Dibias that do healing, and you've got the Dibias that divine. You can go to them. So basically, they're like priests. They're kind of like high
No,
priests,
they,
high
they are not.
priestesses.
They no, they are not like priests. People we regard as priests. People we refer to as ezani, ezani, because in every community they have a day. We have a deity. So anybody that is in charge of a deity is referred to as a akajofo to the deity. If it is Ani or Allah, then you know that the individual is referred to as an Ezana or Ezani. But if it is another deity, then the priest to that deity will call that person Akajofo to that deity. For instance, now in my community, we have a deity that we call Edo. Now, the chief priest of Edo is either called Isiedo or we call that person Akajofo Edo. These are the people that serves as priests. Now, these priests are quite different from the Dibia. The Dibia
Right, they're
cannot
not Dibias
also
at
serve.
all.
No, they are not Dibias at all. They are more like priests, but they also have information, some certain informations, and some of them can perform some traditional works to a certain extent. But their major function, they are not functioning as a Dibia. They are functioning as priests.
Okay, and what is that function then? So they relate to deities, so to gods and goddesses. They speak to the higher powers. Is that
Not not to gods and goddesses, to a specific deity. Like I shy away from using the word god or goddess because we have
okay? You
certain
prefer the
names.
term deity.
Yeah, we,
Okay,
we have certain names for certain deities. So if we call them god
okay.
or goddesses, it's your closing of their own identity. Now I call them
It's too
deities or
general.
more.
Okay,
Yes, it's too
okay,
general. Yes,
okay.
exactly. What these priests to do is if you want to, like me currently, personally, or me, if I want to go to this deity for a certain favor or to appreciate or to acknowledge, I'm not going to walk inside the shrine or the grove and start talking to the deity directly. I have to inform
Right.
the priest. Then the priest would now tell me the right items to use, because some deities, it is not just anything that you bring. So the chief priest would be like, okay, as a woman, you can bring a she goat or a female fowl, or you bring how many pieces of white chalk, how many pieces of the orange chalk, and how many pieces of cola nut, and the kind of drink you would come with. So I have to meet that person. Now, the moment I enter into the groove, the man would take the items that I came with and would now begin to make some affirmations and presenting the items to the deity. Now, once they are done, let's say they want to prepare the food, they'll prepare the items and still call me to a segment that we refer to as Elonimo or Elonmo. They'll bring in the food items, the already made food, and they would present it. They will now tell me to say some certain words. So when I'm done saying the words or what I want or the reason why I'm here and all those things, then the man continues while I go sit down, and they will serve me my own portion of the food that I brought along. This is what they do, and the reason why this thing happens, this why it is this way, is that these people that serve in this capacity, they have certain taboos that they are not expected to do. So they have a certain morality principles also that they are supposed to maintain, something that an ordinary person cannot do. Then preserving those moralities and those principles would allow them to be in communication with that deity. Now, if they make it like a free range, everybody or anybody could just walk in and start talking to the deity recklessly. It is going to, kind of destroy or cause some sort of a misalignment there. So, to preserve the sanctity of that shrine, we have certain individuals that are dedicated to the service of a deity.
Okay, so I'm getting a better picture now. So there are different aspects. So you've got the herbalist, Dibia, you've got the diviner, Dibia, and then you've got can the priest or priestesses, can they be male or female? Or
Specifically, no, it is specifically reserved for the men. And the reason for it is that women do menstruate. So in our cosmology, menstruation is to those deities, it is almost the same thing as human blood. So if a menstruating woman comes before the deity to perform this ritual, then it is as if you're serving that deity your human blood. So because of that, they limit women from becoming Ezani or Akajofo to deities. But women can serve as Ezenwani, as a Dibia to a water spirit.
when you're talking about groves and shrines, what do they consist of?
Okay. Um, Shrines are quite different. You have different kinds, and it is dependent on the constitution, the spiritual constitution of that shrine. We have a shrine that is dedicated to a person's chi or a person's awu.
What is a person's chi? What is a person's agwu?
An energy, we call it Agbara Ketere Akonuche, a deity or an energy that created wisdom, knowledge, creativity. So we look at it here as if you want to be a creative person, if you want you to be special in your career, if you want to reach a certain extent in your career, then you have to be in alignment with what we call Awu. Now, an Awu comes in different forms. It could be an Awu that is dedicated to an individual to be a dibia. It could be an award that helps a creative person, a writer, an actor, an actress, an innovator, a
Okay,
person that deals with science and
right.
technology. So an award has different
Okay.
aspects. Now, based on an individual and the person's akalaka destiny, and the person's akalaka destiny, it will now determine where that person's arrow is fixed and how that arrow can be able to help an individual to grow in their space and in their career. She becomes the driving force of an individual. what happens here is that our ancestors, everybody, we have our own independent chi. Now, chi becomes an aspect of the creator that creates an individual. Now, in the aspect of creating an individual, it's creating the spiritual essence of an individual, whereby Awo, Alose, and all these entities becomes part of Ifesochi Madowebiowa, entity spirits that accompanies a person's chi. Now, what they are doing here is to aid this person to be able to live his or her life in a certain way. Now, because our ancestors, we believe here that the essence of life is for you to learn. Oh, here. So you're coming into this world to gather experiences to learn. And at the end of the day, when you're done learning and you feel you don't have anything that you're going to learn or offer again to the world, then your consciousness can now grow and not reincarnate. So the chi and the zumezu, your in the totality of your spirit, they are there to help you to grow in knowledge, have these experiences, don't have any karmic debt, and at the end of the day, your consciousness, your aka, is supposed to be transcendent to grow and join other cosmological and universal forces. Or they will say that okay, to grow and get into a space that we refer to as a ikelehumo or a obichuku. So that's the interpretation of chi and awu.
Okay, so that's really quite a lot of information, and that's quite a deep and powerful practice. Would you say that the tide is now turning and that people in Igbo land are returning to the cosmology of their forefathers and their ancestors?
Yeah, I do believe that people are reverting to our spirituality. We are more informed because we have the internet, so we are able to see loopholes that exist in religion, things that our ancestors did not really understand. And when we talk about colonization and when we talk about slavery, we are quite aware, we are more knowledgeable than them. We understand these systems better. So for us, the young people, we are championing this system because we now know that what what religion, what Christianity, what they packaged and presented to us as the benefit of Christianity is just a ploy for economic exploitation. So young people are reverting to a traditional way of life, and we're not afraid of this whole "you're going to go to hellfire" kind of rhetoric.
Okay, and this is amazing. I'm also interested, and I feel personally like there's some puzzles that have been missing in my life. I feel that that is, like my background, my foundation, my roots. I feel
Mm.
that learning more about the cosmology is making me feel like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. Do you think that this is just something that is happening to Igbos, or do you think it's happening? Is this like a real movement in West Africa, do you think?
Yeah, it is a real movement because it is not just in Igbo land. Yoruba youths are also doing the same thing, and there is this need for a love of culture. Because I've seen many comic books that were written, and the fictional stories or characters were Shango or all these Yoruba deities. They were incorporating them. So you see people are now trying to incorporate some of our Igbo into mainstream. So it is
Right.
everywhere. There is this awakening of Africans trying to bring out African materials to literature, to entertainment, to the movie industry. And this is how you get your story out there. Because from literature, you could start having Comic Cons using images of these deities. So this is how you basically, and this mission is being championed by Africans who are waking up and paying much seated
Right.
interest in their cultural, traditional artifacts and their spirituality. So it is what is now, because the first thing that it is doing is that it is making people to stop being afraid of of this system. This is why if you check my page, I could use a random artifact, but I structured my page in the way that find images of deities and shrines, even if it is not aesthetically pleasing, I still use them because there is a need for people to
Right.
see these things as normal. Because the first time I stepped into a shrine, I almost ran away. Now later on, and I was because after
Right.
the initial shock, I felt comfortable there. That I have been in a church for a very long time, and it's weird. So immediately I got past the initial shock and I sat down, I started communicating with the Libya. I felt at home, I felt at peace. And in a church, I've never felt
Right. I
this
get you.
way. So there is a need for us to bring these images and show them to people so people get used to it. So in their consciousness or in their psyche, they are no longer operating from a place of fear. They could operate from a place of
Right.
curiosity. So this is why I use the images that I use to make people to be aware that these things are just what it is. And you don't have to fear these things because you're seeing blood spatters or because you're seeing feathers. It is part of a cultural system. If you want us to modify, we can have that communication down the line. But for now, let's just see these things as what it is. We don't have to have an image of a golden stool or a golden table whereby they are feeding you with chalice and all those things for it to give you the sense of holiness or worthiness. But rather, even with clay and three effigies, it could also be a representation of holiness to you as an African person. So there is a call for it, and a lot of people are paying attention and doing the much that they can to get these informations out there. And at the end, and what is now doing it is creating a sense of awareness for a lot of people. People that never paid attention to it are now paying attention to it. So that's just the beauty of it.
Yeah, it is a beautiful thing. Do you believe that this will help in making the society more whole? Do you think it will be a healing process from what's happened in the past? Do you think it will improve society in general if people are more or begin to reconnect with their ancestral religion and deities and healing practices and spirituality, indeed?
Yeah, I said earlier that to an extent I'm a bit weary of why a lot of people, especially in this part of the world, I'm wary why a lot of people are actually reverting. Now, I
Oh,
run
right.
my
So what do you have reservations about?
yes, I have my reservations because people are channeling it the wrong way. Because they will tell you that a person has to be, if we are able to get the basic things of life, food, shelter, what's even the third one? If you're able to get the three basic things of life, then what it means here is that you can be able to channel your energies. So what happens here is that we
Right.
have a lot of young people who see these traditional means as a way for financial liberation. So when people book sessions and they want to like discuss, they're telling me that that they have performed series and series of traditional rituals that a dibia or somebody asked them to do, and yet they've not seen any benefits. And I'm like, benefits? What kind of benefit are we talking about? He said, oh, that the dibia said that if he does this one and do this one, that he's going to make money. So you see that the mindset of some people are wrong. They are not reverting
Right.
because they want to dedicate themselves to the spiritual system of their ancestors. They want to live like their ancestors. They want to live by the philosophies of their ancestors. But they are just looking at it as a means to an end. And most DBS are not even making it
Right.
easy. Most DBS are now also encouraging them. Oh, it
Right.
is your chi that is blocking your way. It is your chi that is making you to not progress. It is your ancestors. Once you do it, everything would be simple. But that's not what these things tell us. Now, what they could actually tell us is that Matamaro or your lineage would also know you. Now, this proverb is contextual because it could mean that in your lineage, your ancestors were great farmers. It could be that in your lineage, your ancestors were technicians, they were innovators, they were doing something as at that time. Now, when you're able to know your ancestors, it could mean getting to know the resources that your ancestors used. Because most of us, our ancestors were really, really wealthy. One of my great great grandfather, he was an Ozo. And what we know people that are Ozo are people that were wealthy back as at that time. So it could mean when you know this your ancestors, you could now be asking the question, what did he do? How was he able to immerse his wealth? It could be that. But what our people think that proverb means is that once you know your ancestors or when you know your spiritual foundation, they will begin to bless you with wealth and abundance. Now it makes
Right.
people just to move from one dibia to one dibia without even understanding the simplest explanation of what these things are all about. And the thing there is that these ancestral deities and they don't exist to pander to what we want. They are looking at the big picture. They are looking at how to make you to evolve. Your evolution, self-development, self-discipline, it is even what matters to them more than the immediate gratifications that we are looking for. So I also tell people that one thing that these spirits or deities or entities are going to do for you, they are not there to make you to be the next Dangote, but they would make sure that you experience life, like life becomes easier for you. It is not going to be a situation whereby the effect of life or the problems of life are just pressing you and pressuring you. They are there to just make your life a little bit easier and enjoyable. But they are not there to pander to your choices. So I'm a bit wary about it. But well, it is still a good thing. And I hope that those people that are coming with that mindset would at some point realize that these things are not what it seems and they will be able to readjust themselves and do better.
Right. Well, it sounds like, nevertheless, it's a good movement that they are turning to at least seeking answers from their past. Because if you look to your past, you really can actually find out what your future is going to be. So it is unfortunate that some people are seeking wealth through spirituality. But I think that there is definitely a long way to go in terms of healing. But I think that the main thing is getting rid of the stigma attached to Igbo
Mm,
cosmology or West African cosmology. Once that stigma's gone, then of course there will be new problems. But if people can
exactly.
start embracing, I think that's really quite a massive step. So I did actually have one other question, and that, well, it's kind of two questions. But the questions are, can a person practice Igbo cosmology and Christianity? Can they do both? And the second question is, can anybody from anywhere in the world practice Igbo cosmology the way they do Catholicism or
At the core of what we practice as in Igbo spirituality, our ancestors and every other foundational spirits, they don't exist to gatekeep. They're not gatekeepers. They're not gatekeepers. Because most times when you look at the structure of some shrines, you will see a church opposite it or very close to their proximity. And they don't care. The spiritual forces are not there to tell people that I am angry that this church is here. I need it to leave. They are not petty. It's even the religious folks that somehow have issues with the existence of these shrines. So they use government as agencies to pull them down. But the traditional institution does not really have a problem of a church staying next to it. So any day that they are going to open the shrine or people are going to come there to perform some sort of ritual, people go there. If it's on a Sunday, church people are going to the church. The traditionalists are going to their this thing. to the shrine to perform their rituals. So at the core of our spirituality, our ancestors, they are not against anybody practicing Christianity. But personally, I would say that I have an issue with it. So most people that think they want to synchronize or to practice the both are just doing it because they don't want to be looked upon as demonic people, as people who abandoned Christ. I believe that we don't have to pander to religious institutions because they do not want us to exist. If you give them the leverage to pull down every single shrine in southeastern Nigeria, they will do it without betting an eye. So it to me it's a question of standing by my beliefs and not wanting to adulterate it. But at the core of our spirituality, these spirits they do not have any single issue with it. It is your choice. But the only thing they require from us is that we respect their own institution and we teach our children about them. We shouldn't neglect them because we are trying to substitute them for, shinier things. But to me, it's a question of personal choice. I don't agree with it. I don't think it is the right thing. I think if you want to practice tradition, practice tradition. If you want to be a Christian, be a Christian. There is no need of merging the two.
If you wouldn't say you can be both in a true sense.
No, it's a personal thing for me. I don't think you can be both because already Christian doctrines are telling you that their God is a jealous God, that He's going to punish you for serving another God. So you cannot feed me that kind of information and I would still smile and sit down with you and still try to reason with you because I know that if you're giving the choice to destroy the edifice that I've raised, you will do that. We've seen it happen recently. You will do it. So to me, it's a choice of personal belief, but at the core of our spirituality, these deities and cosmic forces, they don't have any issue with it.
Okay, and my other question, can anybody in the world from anywhere, from any different culture, come and practice Igbo cosmology, or do you have to have Igbo ancestors to practice it?
Not anybody can practice ordinary because it is rooted in ancestry. It is rooted in an
Okay,
individual's ancestry. Like it is like there are some rituals that I have to perform, or even I want to perform it. It would require that I go home and I get sand particles from my father's compound or from my mother's compound, my mother's paternal home. So somebody that is not from my community, my tribe, cannot practice my spirituality because you are not rooted the way I am rooted.
right,
So it's
right.
not something anybody can practice. It is something only indigenes and people that share a common ancestry and roots can only practice. That yeah, it's just almost
But what about something like the herbalism? If you have a herb that is able to clear, I don't know, your liver and make it more healthy if it's jaundiced or something, can that not still work for somebody?
definitely it works for everybody and anybody, no matter where you're from.
You can do the herbalism if you're not from Igbo land.
No, what I meant is that they give you a herbal concoction and you take it and it would heal your body. But you cannot serve as a herbalist except you're just you're documenting the herbs and what they are doing and probably taking it to your own side and processing it in a lab or anything. Those ones are different. But what makes a herbalist is that they did not go through any formal institution to learn which herbs would would perform a certain function or would heal a certain disease. Those ones are cosmically tied to their awu. So their awu divulges the information, the secrets of the herbs, shows them which herb they can use to treat a certain illness. Every single herbalist I know did not go to school to learn about it. Now, what they will tell you is that they dreamt or they were dreaming and they saw an older woman take them to a bush and show them some certain herbs. And some of them would even say that when they are inside the bush, that somehow they communicate with the herbs. So the herbs can teach them or tell them the right ones to use for a certain illness.
You're just chosen to do it and you know how to do it just through a spiritual contact.
Intervention. Exactly. Exactly. So that's
That's
how
your
it is.
agu, then, you would
Yes.
say.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So that's all very interesting. And I think we've really packed quite a lot in there. We've really managed to separate how Christianity made people turn away from their ancestors. I do know that I have been to some Nigerian churches where you actually pray and scream and shout that your ancestors get away from you. Ancestral spirit, die by fire. I've been to churches like that. So, yeah, there is quite a lot of healing to be done and restoration in sub Saharan Africa. Maybe it will take a couple of generations for that all to be cleared away, because I think that the indoctrination of Christianity by the colonialists has been for quite a long time. As you said earlier, there's a lot of fear in there. There's the fear of hellfire. And actually, just before we started talking, I was watching a podcast on YouTube where they had a guy called Toby. I think he's quite well known. And then they had a Christian pastor. What was so funny was,
I think I saw the podcast. I think it's being
yeah,
run
it's,
by Cruz something. I did not really try
yeah,
to go through the whole thing,
yeah,
but I
it's
watched the
quite
snippet.
interesting. It's quite interesting because what the priest was saying was very colonialist in that he said there's good and there's evil and there's black and there's white.
Mm,
And, it really made me think this was a very good way of colonializing people by saying that
mm-hmm,
white is good and black is bad. And
mm.
I do know that, I even had an aunt that called Africa the dark continent and
That
that we were
continues.
steeped in ignorance. So everything that is bad is black. I mean, he literally said that. There's good and bad, there's black and white, and you want to be on the good side, you want to be on the white side. And what the colonialists did was to say, come and be like Jesus. Jesus is white. So try and be white, and then you can get to heaven, and then you're good. So it's kind of like a system where you're set up to fail. So to have black people saying, it really is like saying, try to be white. It was just such a great hoodwink. It was such a clever ploy to really have human resources and the resources of the earth for hundreds of years and to use this religion improperly to enslave the minds of people. So I think it's going to be very, very difficult, but it may take a couple of generations for the cosmology to begin to flourish. And I think that once that flourishes, a lot of the problems in Nigeria will melt away by themselves, economically and even politically, which is, of course, another subject entirely, but of course linked as well. Somto, thank you so much for your time, and I'm so glad that we managed to overcome the technical issues of the network in Nigeria, the telephone network. So thank you once again for sharing your knowledge. It's very, very deep and insightful, and there's a lot to unpack there. So really appreciate that. And I really look forward to working with you you'll be joining us on the conferences, at least the one in Nigeria. We haven't got a date yet, but we're really happy to kick off the podcasts with your knowledge and look forward to collaborating with you on the conferences with other experts and scholars and artists and poets on West African cosmology, and with you as our Igbo land cosmology expert. Somto, thank you very much.